Hey there, real quick before we get into tonight's episode, wanted to mention you may have seen on our socials, we have our 2025 Westlaw Pirates t-shirt on sale right now. Really awesome shirt. It's our new logo on a nice soft purple shirt. If you haven't had a chance to look at it, you can head to our website, westlawpirates.com, go to our socials on Twitter at Westlaw Pirates, look in our bio for the link. Less than a week to go on August 18th. Sale's over, and we'll be going from there. So if you want to get your hands on one of our awesome new 2025 Westlaw Pirates t-shirts, head to our website, westlawpirates.com, or go to our Twitter page and our profile at Westlaw Pirates, and you can follow the link there. Hey there, we're the Westlaw Pirates and welcome to the show. We're here to share our thoughts on Northwestern athletics and college sports with thoughts and analysis from the visceral to the statistical. We run our tailgate with the red pirate flag flying high above as we give no quarter, especially the fourth. I'm Sam Walter.
I'm John Lacombe.
And I'm Eric Skoskaspo.
Well, guys, we have come to our Nebraska preview which in years past has always given me such joy because I fucking hate Nebraska so much.
How much corn could a Husker husk if a Husker could husk corn?
I always love. I know it's like the bygone eras of Illinois football as well. It's like the Nebraska's like. I mean, we'll get to it, but I feel like it's so rare that we're like this team's like so solidly mid to upper. It's like we'll get to it. It's like seems like so many teams are like feast or famine, and then there's Nebraska.
I know it's not appropriate this year, but I think my favorite thing that's ever been said on our podcast was, John, when you referred to like Purdue, Illinois, and Nebraska circling the bottom of the Big Ten West and described it as the pillow fight down in the corn. That just still that just warms the cockles of my heart.
There's another one that I'll just throw it in off the top. When the new Superman movie came out this year, Kirk Herbstreit was like, I went and saw that movie and hated it, and I was like, well, this is the same guy who said Nebraska was back every year of the Scott Frost era, so like I'm pretty stoked to see the Superman movie.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
Straight to the top of the list.
Yeah, this guy had Nebraska in like the top 20 every year of the Frost era. So great.
Well, we are now firmly in the Matt Rhule era as
Indeed we are.
He starts his third year. So I'm not even going to call them black shirts because fuck that. John, tell us about their defense.
So this is a fascinating one for me, and it's arguably for someone like me that just goes so deep into all these Big Ten defenses every year. This is arguably the single biggest defensive question in the Big Ten in 2025. It is right up there with Jim Knowles leaving Ohio State for Penn State. How in God's name did Nebraska let Tony White leave for Florida State? This one blows me away. And to be clear, it's obvious Florida State, who is in dire straits, absolutely backed up the Brinks truck for White, and deservedly so. But Nebraska should have matched every penny of that money. They should have offered so much more money that White couldn't leave. And this is something that we've talked about so much. But just about any time we get into some discussion about the importance of identity in college football, Nebraska comes up one way or another.
Yeah.
They always come up. And Tony White had given them an identity, and they let him go. So 2024 had marked yet another step forward for Tony White's defense, which is great. And it maybe hadn't gotten quite the attention of these magnificent defensive hires that like Kurt Cignetti and Brian Haynes and Jim Knowles, Tosh Lupoy, etc. But Nebraska had hit a monster home run with White, made all the more fascinating by how unique his defense is and how well he gets this team to buy into it. So what I'm referring to is the Tony White 3-3-5. And most of you, I'm sure, are familiar with the 3-3-5. 3-3-5 in and of itself is not unique with football, but you're not going to find many teams who deploy the 3-3-5 the way that White does. But White is so hot as a defensive coordinator right now because he successfully built this exact same unorthodox defense into a powerhouse at Syracuse and then at Nebraska. What's special about this defense is how good it is against the run. So when you think 3-3-5, you're probably thinking of like crazy attacking schemes designed for like your pass happy conferences. It'd be like something like that Memphis would run or something like that, right? White's D isn't like that at all. It's built to run blitz and catch offensive line run schemes off guard, and White is just awesome at it. No one's better. So consider, if you look at the top 5 teams in the Big Ten in sacks last year, 4 of those teams, when sacks, were also in the top 5 in tackles for loss. And then the odd team out there, Michigan, was still 6th in the Big Ten in tackles for loss because teams that get tons of sacks tend to get lots of tackles for loss. Well, Nebraska was only 7th in the conference in sacks, but they were top 5 in tackles for loss. Consider this, and this is something we are going to revisit when we get to Illinois. Nebraska had 1 less sack on the season than Illinois and 26 more tackles for loss than Illinois did.
Wow.
This is why Nebraska had the number 5 run defense in the conference, the 8th best run defense in the nation, and the number 7 scoring defense in the conference. White built this thing. It's a thing no one else does. It's a thing he's awesome at. And he's gotten multiple teams to buy into it, and it was just humming away at Nebraska, and yet they let White go. And as we talked about during the Wisconsin pod, messing with a working identity is a dangerous thing. And the most famous example of this that we and everyone else cite is what Bill Callahan did with the Nebraska offense. And the flip side of this is when you bring in and instill a strong new identity within a team that's missing one, you've got to hang on to this guy. White brought in something new and special, and it worked. And Nebraska should have done everything possible that they could to build on it. It blows my mind because it's Nebraska, right? It's this team who aspires to this past glory, who's like, we have resources, we have this stadium, we have this tradition. And it's like, then you got to pay for this guy. You got to be like, screw you, Florida State. You're never prying this guy loose. We're going to pay him so much money you can't even consider it. Like, that's the move you have to do, and they didn't do it. So as things stand, Nebraska is sticking with the 3-3-5. They promoted John Butler, who is Nebraska's secondary coach under White, to operate the defense. That's a wise move. But I want to stress here that Nebraska's defense is not a star-laden unit, and it loses defensive lineman Ty Robinson. This is a guy we've been on to. When nothing was right in the Frost era, this guy was right. It seems like he was at Nebraska forever. He was, probably for our money, the most impactful Husker defender of the past 5 years. Just an impact player for that whole stretch. Really was better than so many of the defenses that he played on, and then got to be a part of this improved culture under White. And now he's gone. The most interesting player on the defense is inbound, and that's linebacker Deshaun McCullough, who's coming in through the portal. McCullough is a fascinating guy in that this is a guy who was very good, quite good for Oklahoma last year, and is a young linebacker. And yet, no one's playing the shoulda, woulda, coulda game more than Deshaun McCullough, because Deshaun McCullough was at Indiana and then walked out the door as Curt Cignetti was walking in the door. Deshaun McCullough would have been a first-team All-Big Ten linebacker last year, and he would have been probably in the All-Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year conversation, because he's a great football player, and Curt Cignetti would have molded him into gold. But I mean, like, that ship has sailed, but he was still good at Oklahoma. Now he's coming in to be at Nebraska. He's going to be a really exciting linebacker for them. And he's probably, again, he's a solid linebacker. This is a great run defense. He's probably going to flourish against the run in this system. But again, to go back to this larger point about culture, under White, Nebraska hasn't needed a lot of stars. That's been like what's great about this system is we talked about it when White first came in. Like, what was so great about it was that it was the hire that fit a team that was finally understanding what their identity was. It's like, yeah, you should be grabbing a guy who made this work at Syracuse because this isn't the 1990s anymore, and you're not going to be pulling in a load of four-star guys. You need to build some sort of identity. White was the perfect hire, and he did it. So Nebraska hasn't needed a lot of stars because this system over the past 2 years has proven to be sound, and it's established a clear identity. And you could build a new generation of black shirts on the back of that identity. It would just be a different looking unit. And again, it is just mind boggling that Nebraska go ahead. Scott.
Well, you know what this reminds me of? Because the guy that they've brought in, like they've kept, shoot, I lost it. John Butler. So the defensive backs coach,
right,
is going to be assuming the role. And when you dig into all the stories online about why why they allowed him to leave, it was, Rhule was in a tough place because White eventually wanted to be a head coach. He knew he was going to lose him eventually. He didn't also want to lose John Butler. So he held on to John Butler. What does that remind you of? University of Wisconsin and Mike Hankwitz in 2008.
That's a great point. They're looking, being like, well, surely White, he's the older guy. Surely he doesn't have 30 more good years in him. It's like, allow us to show you to Mike Hankwitz.
And for those who weren't around for that, is that basically what happened is Coach Fitzgerald called up Wisconsin and said, hey, I'd love to talk to your young linebackers coach, Dan Doran, about being my DC. And they were like, you can't talk to him. You can talk to our defensive coordinator, Mike Hankwitz. And they promoted Dan Doran to become their DC, and they let Northwestern hire Hankwitz away. And 3 years later, Hankwitz was operating one of the best defenses in the Big Ten, and Dan Doran left Wisconsin to go be head coach at North Carolina State.
Yeah, the thing here is like, you could say like that was hubris by Wisconsin, but this goes to the whole thing of like, every Nebraska fan has this thing about being Nebraska.
Yeah.
And it should just be like, well, then you cut him a check. Be like, well, sorry, Tony White, like, whatever your aspirations are, the giant stack of cash we are dumping in front of you is going to put off those aspirations, at least for a while.
Kirby Smart is never making that calculus. Nick Saban
Right.
is never making that calculus. No. They are just like ponying up. Reminder, Big Ten schools make like $100 million a year off the TV deal. ACC schools are at least 30 million shy of that. So like the money's there, folks.
Right. And again, it's like, to Scott's point, it's not like Tony White left to go be a head coach.
Exactly.
He left to go be a DC at Florida State. And you know what? He's going to be sick there. He's got his thing. Like, he has 100% figured this thing out. And it was a layup to retain him, to pay him whatever amount of money was necessary. But whatever. Again, like I said, like, yeah, they kept Butler. They're going to try to make this work. Maybe he's the younger guy. I mean, with all this said, they've built something that works right now. I mean, and again, it's like they're not loaded with talent. And you could argue that some of the Eric Chenander teams, of the Frost era, had better talent than this. But what they have is something that really works. It's a set system. They know what they're good at. They know how to do it. And again, it's not like all these guys transferred out the door when White transferred out the door. Like, there's a lot of pieces here. So finishing this all up with the us piece of it, the Northwestern piece of it, as far as we're concerned in Lincoln, the way to beat this defense is really simple. You just throw. It's all about throwing the ball. Nebraska was fine at getting after the quarterback last year. Again, this was a very good defense. Like, they were not bad at the pass piece of it. They just weren't as good. They're not exceptional at getting after the quarterback, though. And again, their best guy against the pass rush, their best defensive lineman by far was Ty Robinson. The secondary is average. They're an average Big Ten unit. Preston Stone is going to need to take his time and find the holes in the back of the 3-3-5 and pick it apart. He's probably going to be facing a bunch of 2nd and 8s and 3rd and 7s. This defense is just a pain in the ass to have to run the ball against. It sucks. It sucks to prep for, and they're really good at executing it on the ground, and they'll probably be able to do that again. So we're going to be behind the sticks a lot here, but Stone's used to throwing deep a lot. He's going to get a lot of time to throw, and he's going to have all the opportunities in the world to find guys open here and just pick this defense apart. That's the way that you got to do it. That's the way that you go about it. That's the way that you beat Nebraska. It's going to be tough, but I 100% believe you can do it.
let's go to the offensive side of the ball, and there is one name that you think Nebraska right now, and you got to think Dylan Raiola.
Yeah, it's the great quarterback hope for this Nebraska team. What's interesting is, so last year was his freshman year, and he came into much hype and much excitement. And while the defense was really good and Nebraska finally went to a bowl game for the first time in many years, I think Nebraska fans collectively lost years off their lives watching this offense. It was an exciting start to the season. They went 5-1 out of the gate, the only loss being an OT loss to Illinois. When you look at those 6 teams that they played, not exactly great defenses. UTEP, Colorado, Northern Iowa, Illinois, Purdue, and Rutgers. Yikes. And then they hit a wall. And only another shot against a bad defense in Wisconsin late in the year propelled them to bowl eligibility. I think it's possible that hiring Dana Holgorsen may have helped some late in the year. They hired him as an offensive assistant or whatever. He's the official OC coming into this next season. But it's important to note that Nebraska averaged 23.5 points per game in the 4 games after Holgo came aboard. That is exactly the same number that they averaged in the 9 games prior to his arrival. So yeah, you mentioned Dylan Raiola. All the focus this year is on Raiola, and if he can progress and if he can grow. And everyone's like, well, of course, in his sophomore year, he's got to make a jump, like yada yada yada. Like it's probably going to happen. He's going to be better, and Dana Holgorsen is quite good at developing quarterbacks. So I think the idea that Raiola gets a much better, he was 13-11 TD to pass ratio last year. It's going to get better. He's going to make better decisions. He was pretty good on completion percent, like 67% last year. He had a tendency to check down. He's going to push the ball upfield more. They've got a couple of receivers that they hope can stretch, etc. But I don't think that is what is going to help Nebraska. I think if Dylan Raiola gets better and improves and makes a jump in his second year, I don't know, maybe this team goes 8-4, maybe they go 9-3, and they get a slightly better bowl bid. That is not what the Husker fans want. This team has no shot of reclaiming its former glory unless they figure out how to run the ball again. 3.9 yards per carry last season.
Oof,
man.
As a team, they ran for 1,600 yards total. That is a 25% decline from 2023. And before anybody starts chirping at me about like being behind in games, they only had 30 fewer carries than 2023. Physical, punishing blocking was everything Matt Rhule talked about in his first press conference as Nebraska's coach. And last year, they were supposed to see a big uptick given the talent boost on O-line and being, year 2 in the system. And he talked all about at Baylor, this is our system. We're in the Big Ten now. We're going to have to build, we have to bring bigger offensive linemen to the table, etc. Yeah, they had some injuries last season. But they were just as banged up in 2023. So this is a bit of a conundrum. And the way it played out last season is that instead of Rhule's promised physical attack, an anemic run game fed Raiola's worst gunslinger tendencies. And he threw 11 picks, and they lost, 6 of their last 7 games. The optimistic view for this offense in 2025 is that they shouldn't be as injured, and they have continued to build strength and depth on the O-line. This was a big outage for them. When we first saw Rhule come in, we saw the pedigree of talent on the O-line was improving. Well, they're in year 3 now of attracting those guys. They've built out depth in their room. They're going to see, growth in their passing attack, both because Raiola is here and is growing, and they've got some new transfer wide receivers. But all of these things are the things I said about Nebraska last year. And yes, they got better. They went from 18 points per game up to 23.5. But again, that is not where this team aspires to be. The downside in 2025 for this offense is they face just as many tough defenses as last year. Raiola will be better, but he's still going to have ups and downs. I mean, this guy aspires to be Pat Mahomes, and he does get that gunslinger mentality. the talent upgrades to my eye on offensive line and wide receiver are marginal at best. For example, the best wide receiver, like last year, they brought in transfers from Texas and Wake Forest, and they were supposed to unlock the offensive line. Well, this year's dudes are maybe more vertical threats, but this is like a believe it when I see it kind of thing. Most importantly, to my eye, the running back room is the biggest weak spot on this offense. Last year, Dante Dodell came from Oregon, and he helped kind of shore things up. He split carries with Emmett Johnson, who'd been around for a couple of years. They both gained roughly 600 yards, but Dowdell scored 12 touchdowns to Johnson's 1. And Gabe Ervin, who's supposed to be the next big thing in Nebraska's backfield, barely saw the field last year, and now he's at K-State. So coming into 2025, the running back room is Emmett Johnson in year, I think, 4, who's fine. They have a talented 175-pound freshman in Jamarian Parker, and a dude named Quentin Ives, who I guess like he tops 200 pounds, but his claim to fame is 7 yards on 6 carries in the bowl game last year.
Wow.
For a team that could not run the ball, this looks like a big problem. The tight end position also takes a hit. They lost Thomas Fidone to the draft. He was a really decent extension of the O-line last year on inline blocking. Not as great downfield, but he's playing for the New York Giants now, and they have some smaller, less heralded gentlemen to replace him at the tight end position. They have moved former quarterback Heinrich Harburg to the tight end position. He's listed number 2 on the depth chart in Phil Steele's tome. Running was the thing that Rhule built his Baylor and Temple programs on. And I get that with Dana Holgerson as your offensive coordinator, maybe running the ball is not your top priority, but for this offense to jump up in 2025, especially if there's questions on the defense with identity and coach, etc., Raiola's going to have to make a quantum leap, not a typical freshman to sophomore year jump. And I don't see any boost from the run game coming this year. And to top it all off, at media days, Raiola was talking about how he's going to be running a lot more this year, and he's bulked up to try to do that. It's pretty risky, I think, especially when your next best option is moving Heinrich Harburg back to quarterback from tight end. So this just seems, it honestly seems like a bit of a house of cards. And I think there are going to be games where this offense explodes. I mean, they brought in a couple good wide receivers. I haven't named them yet. Dane Key comes from Kentucky. And then they get Isaiah Hunter as well, who becomes a starter. They've got another guy coming from somewhere that I can't track down in my head right now. But there's presumably on paper more vertical downfield talent there and the offensive line to protect Raiola. But if this team can't run the ball at all, I don't really feel great about Raiola throwing into drop 7, drop 8 and see what happens. So this offense should be better in 2025, but I really question if it will be. And maybe that's just my anti-Nebraska bias coming through. And if it is, I apologize.
Feel
but
the hate, love it.
I know, right?
Embrace it.
But there's just too many ifs here and question marks to feel really good about this team. I feel like, John, based on everything you said and what I'm seeing here, this is a true enigma.
If you or a loved one is seriously injured by someone else's negligence, hire Kent Simpson of the Simpson Law Group. After over a decade prosecuting murder cases in Chicago, Simpson opened his own firm focused on wrongful death and personal injury cases. He specializes in car, truck, motorcycle, boat, and other transportation accidents, as well as construction accidents, medical negligence, slip and falls, product liability, and more. Millions recovered for clients, no fee unless he wins. The Simpson Law Group, compassion, empathy, and vigorous advocacy. Go to simpsonlawgroup.com or call 312-332-2107 for a free consultation. And go Cats. Well, let's run through their schedule here real quick. They open up the season Thursday night against Cincinnati at Arrowhead Stadium. So Raiola gets to live his Pat Mahomes cosplay life and play one game at Arrowhead.
You think that was a stipulation of his recruitment?
Probably, yeah. Then their non-con continues with Akron and Houston Christian. They start the conference season against Michigan, and then they get a bye week before they play Michigan State. All those games are at home. They then travel to Maryland, travel to Minnesota on a Friday night. They are home for Northwestern on October 25th, home for USC right after that. Then they go out to LA, get a bye week. They go to Penn State, and they finish off the season against Iowa at home on Black Friday.
This is very generous from a travel perspective.
Yeah.
It is.
They don't have any situations where they have to go like boom, boom, boom.
This is where, again, I think from 1,000 miles up looking down, it's really easy to be like, well, Nebraska's got something kind of working on defense right now, and they have an exciting quarterback. But here's like the giant bombshell Scuzz dropped here is just how bad they are running the ball, and that they haven't really improved that at all. And that's a massive. So I went back and looked. Last season, Nebraska played 3 good run defenses built around the defensive line: Iowa, Indiana, and Ohio State. And in those games, they scored 7, 10, and 14 points, or 17 points. 7, 10, 17 points. This year, they play Michigan, Minnesota, Penn State, Iowa. So do the math.
And us.
No, and us. But if you look at those other 4 teams, those are all awesome run defenses. Those 4 teams that they're playing are awesome run defenses built around the defensive line. And Nebraska's just not going to get any rush yards in those games. Like, that's the thing. It's like, it's not about Raiola. It's just about, like, what is he's going to do everything? It would, like Scuzz said, it would take this titanic leap for him to do it. If they're just not going to be able to run the ball at all in those games, if they're going to get like 80 yards rushing, like, don't forget, Indiana obliterated this team. It was 56-7. And part of that's because, like, Nebraska, like, Indiana had an awesome defense and Nebraska just couldn't run at all. And it's like, right, like, it's not about Raiola. I think we like Raiola, and like he's trending upwards. Like we talked about in Aiden Childs, right? It's kind of like the same thing. It's like an exciting guy where you have to write off so much that just he was a freshman. And again, like in some Cinderella situation where it's like, hey, great quarterback and very solid defense, 10-2, but to me, all those teams with great defensive lines are just a wall for them. And again, you can look and be like, they weren't competitive. I mean, Iowa was close, but I mean, they couldn't score any points in that game. So I don't know. I mean, again, there's a lot to like here. Like I see 8 or something like that. But I just feel like there's this ceiling that their run game is creating.
Yeah, for sure. And as I've been thinking about it, and this is a real like kind of don't throw stones in glass houses moment, but like it's a very similar commentary that I'm going to have on Northwestern's offense. Like we were worse at running the ball this past year than Nebraska was. And Preston Stone can be amazing, but if we can't figure out how to run the ball, like that has been the hallmark of every successful Northwestern team as long as any of us have lived.
Yeah.
And there haven't been that many. So, but the point being, like, it's not just about, you have to run the ball. It's not just about that, it's not about running the ball to run the ball. This is how Matt Rhule has been successful at every stop he's ever been successful at. And it's the thing he talked about in his first press conference. And it goes back to identity. This is like Luke Fickell putting the air raid in it at Wisconsin in a ham-fisted way. This is about letting Tony White go. This is about like Rich Rod at Michigan. Like this is the thing that we have seen go sideways time after time after time. And
right.
I don't think it's going to go that sideways for Nebraska because I think they're too talented to go they're not going to have a losing record. They're going to go bowling again, but 7-6, 7-5, 8-4. That is not what the Nebraska faithful want. Right. And the one other bit from media days I'll play on here, and this could be a throwaway line. This could be the thing that 19 out of 20. How many teams are in the Big Ten now? However many teams are in
18.
the Big Ten -1. So 17 out of 18 teams, like the quarterback might say the same thing. But Dylan Raiola was like, yeah, like our goals, a national championship. And I'll be honest, anything less than that would be a little bit disappointing. And maybe that's just a thing you say when you're a quarterback of a Big Ten team at media days. But like, this team is not in the same universe with that statement, and an offense that can't run the ball effectively. And then that dude who wants to be Pat Mahomes is putting that kind of pressure on himself. Holy shit.
Well, and also you're too, and then there's this ball attached to the chain around your ankle that is Nebraska. It's like we like a lot of the pieces here, but they haven't turned the corner yet.
Nope.
Like it's like you're still trying to shrug off this bear that's grabbing you.
Pinstripe bowl.
Yeah.
Pinstripe bowl.
I mean that this is. I mean they're not there, and like right, there's this feeling of like walking before you can run, and like letting Tony White walk up and talking about national titles and be like, you ain't back yet. Like again, like you're in a better place here. But right, I mean again, like this team has the talent to get to 8, to get to 9. Like for sure, like in terms of, again, if you get some sort of leap out of Raiola, but also too, like it could be that you lost Tony White and you lost your best defensive lineman by far, and you still can't run the ball, and you're lucky to get to 6 or 7, right? And again, I'm like, again, like there are plenty of teams that are in worse places than Nebraska, but for a team that ought to be able to firmly look right now and be like, hey man, like we are, like we bolstered our run game. We brought in some massive transfer running back, and we dumped a giant fat stack of cash in front of Tony White to keep him from leaving, and onward and upward, baby. And it's like, nope, they didn't do those things, but they're acting like they did.
Just those two things, and I would be looking at this schedule and saying like, damn, I think they can get to 10 wins.
Yeah.
But there are,
but again,
those, I mean, last year they at least brought in a dude from Oregon. They bring in nobody this year in the running back room. And I just like it's funny. Like you look at the lineup. So Michigan and USC and Penn State are the 3 arguably toughest games. They get USC at home, they get
Iowa.
Michigan at home, Iowa at home. This schedule is not harder than last year. Like objectively, it's an easier schedule, but I just don't believe that this Nebraska can go through this. I mean, last year they lost to UCLA at home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again,
Illinois at home.
Yeah. I mean, again, like I think they're going to be in like a ton of these games again. Like I don't think their defense is going to let them down, and I don't think Raiola is going to let them down either. It's not that. It's that their defense maybe will be good but not great, and they I kind of wonder, like, what are the Nebraska football practices like when they're trying to run the ball against their own run defense? Like, what is that like on a week to week basis? I don't know. But again, it's like they're keep in mind their defense is losing massive pieces too. So I don't know. Yeah, I think, seven wins, maybe 8 wins. Then Nebraska fans trying to tell themselves that they've finally turned the corner again.
Their floor is really solid. They're going to get 6. They're going to get 7. They're going to go bowling. But there's like seeing them get much beyond that is a real stretch for me right now.
Are you penciling in the Cincinnati game right off the top?
I don't think Cincinnati is very good. I have very little faith in Scott Satterberg.
Okay.
But I haven't looked at them at all to see if they have anything good coming back.
Fair enough.
I guess they are a Big 12 team now. Maybe that matters.
Yeah. I mean, it is Big 12. I mean,
it's worth mentioning a little bit, like right off the back end. I mean, we haven't talked about it too much. This is the exact game. I wish this one was at home, man. I wish we were getting the Huskers out on the lake, or not so much in Wrigley, because man, would they travel to that game, it would be gross. But out on the lake would be great for this one. Now, we've won in Lincoln before, but this one could definitely tip in our favor. I would love having that little je ne sais quoi of having this one be out on the lake. But Yeah, I mean this one would be like a massive pride game for our defensive line to step up and be like, you will not run the ball. You're like Antosaka and his like increased weight or whatever to be like, you will not run the ball. And then you may have Dylan Raiola, but we are getting Hubbard and Saka and Kilbane and Haggerty on the field in so many long yardage passing downs that it doesn't matter what you have with him. You can map it out. Like that all makes sense in my mind. And may that happen. May that be a game where our defensive line really leverages their strength.
May we be able to use the Gandalf meme gif from
Fellowship
of the Ring.
Hell yeah.
I'm just looking at Cincinnati real quick because I'm curious. Picked to finish, 8th, 9th, 10th in the Big 12, somewhere in there. 5-7 last year. They bring back a lot of players, including their QB. They got Tyree Walker from Wisconsin as a transfer, which is kind of interesting.
Anytime you can pick up a Wisconsin transfer, you really got to do that.
Well, it's just, the dude didn't play. Do you think Fickle was like, hey, you might do better at Cincinnati?
Maybe.
I don't think Nebraska's going to have any trouble with them. Just to be honest.
Fair enough. Any last thoughts on Nebraska before we close the door on this one?
No, just you're stoking the fires of your hate once a year is always fun, Sammy.
Yeah.
I really didn't do it to fire you up, man. I you dig into the stats on this offense and it's just weird. It's just weird. Who knows? Maybe Raiola comes out and has flipping Tim Tebow worthy season as a sophomore. I don't know.
Yeah, I could easily see a situation where he gets hurt.
Yeah,
he's trying to do too much.
Yeah,
like he did. Like he missed time last year, right?
Especially if he's running the ball more. Yikes!
Yeah.
Paging Tyler Van Dyke.
Oh boy.
And again, hey, I mean, against us, may he keep alive the proud Nebraska running quarterback tradition of fumbling the ball as many times as you possibly can.
The backup QBs are not great. Marcus Davila was a good recruit, but has never played. I would honestly hate to see Raiola get injured. I think that would be, as much as I dislike the specter of Nebraska in some ways, that would be a bridge too far. Don't kill the great Nebraska hope.
Oh, I will kill it with fire.
I was going to say, you teed Sam up for that one.
Tatanka.
Oh, boy. With that, before I say anything that's going to get me in trouble, we'll go ahead and leave it there for tonight. Head to our website, westlawpirates.com, where you can leave comments and questions. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram, and YouTube at Westlaw Pirates. You can always email us, westlawpirates@gmail.com. Tune in next time as we give our visceral and statistical views on Northwestern athletics. Look for us in the West Tech lot of Martin Stadium flying the red pirate flag, because we give no quarter, especially the fourth. For John Lacombe and Eric Scasbo, I'm Sam Walter. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you next time.